Okay, kids, hang on to your bonnets. Some breaking news out of Lincoln this afternoon. What started as a dispute over a contract has officially escalated into a criminal referral. State Auditor Mike Foley has handed over his report to the Nebraska State Patrol and the Attorney General's office involving the Pillen administration and a multi-million-dollar emergency contract. Just this afternoon, Aaron Sandiford from the Nebraska Examiner is reporting the conflict between the governor's office and State Auditor Mike Foley over Nebraska's emergency no-bid contract has entered a new and much more serious stage. Aaron is reporting that Foley has now confirmed that he has referred his audit findings to the Nebraska Attorney General's office and the Nebraska State Patrol for investigation and possible prosecution. Okay, so let's break down the two specific allegations that have turned this policy fight into a potential legal battle. I'm Dan Parsons, and this is an emergency Go Fact Yourself episode. Okay, so let's start with the money. At the heart of this is a $2.5 million emergency no-bid contract. As you may recall from my talk last week with Aaron Sandiford, the executive editor of Nebraska Examiner, typically for a contract this size, the state has to go through a competitive bidding process to ensure that us taxpayers are getting the best deal. However, the Nebraska Department of Economic Development, DED, skipped that step, citing an emergency. But here's the problem. Auditor Mike Foley says the state failed to provide any actual justification for why this was an emergency. He notes that the contract was signed with a lobbyist who is a known acquaintance of Governor Jim Pillen. The governor's office argues that they were squeezed for time by the 2024 budget bill, LB 1412. But Auditor Foley ain't buying it. He's gone on record saying that the state had, quote, more than enough time to follow the rules. And according to Aaron's new reporting, Attorney General Mike Hilgers has confirmed this afternoon that he's received the referral to investigate whether this deal skirted state law. Allegation number 2, the cover-up. As serious as a $2.5 million no-bid contract is, the second part of Foley's referral might even be a bigger legal problem for the governor and his administration. Auditor Foley is now alleging that members of the Pillen administration attempted to deceive his office during the audit. In Nebraska, that's not just a breach of protocol, it's a misdemeanor. So here's the details. According to the auditor's findings, the DED was required to submit a specific report by June 30th of last year. Foley says they didn't hand it over until he asked for it in July. And when they did, he alleges it was backdated to make it look like they had met the legal deadline. So this is why the State Patrol is now involved. And we ain't just talking about some red tape anymore. We're talking about a potential criminal deception of the state auditor. So here's the fallout and response. And the question is, where do we stand now? The governor's office has remained quiet today, offering no immediate comment on the referral after it became public during a legislative committee hearing earlier today. Meanwhile, we know that the Attorney General, Hilgers, is also looking into a separate request to investigate this same issue from a former state senator. The political stakes are massive. Here, I'll just set the stage for you. We have a Republican auditor referring a Republican governor's administration to a Republican Attorney General and the State Patrol. This is a pretty rare level of internal friction within the state's top leadership. I can't recall a similar situation in all my decades of being involved in politics here in the state. Okay, so let's wrap this up. This story is developing by the hour. Will the State Patrol find enough evidence for a prosecution? Will the governor's office provide a more detailed justification for that $2.5 million contract? I guarantee you, we're going to be following every update right here. If you haven't, go read Aaron's breaking story at the Nebraska Examiner. Okay, thanks for tuning in. I'm Dan Parsons, and this has been an emergency Go Fact Yourself briefing. We'll see you back here tomorrow for another episode of the Dan Parsons Show. In the meantime, go do good things. We'll see you tomorrow.